off, gets away a little bit. 3 wide with a come off turn 4. This is the finish these fans came and stayed for.
So he's always been
season or 19 races last year.
What he's going to have to do is he's going to have to compete. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Backroad, In Between Media's Fantasy NASCAR web series. I'm Elliot Hicks, and I'm back. Missed the last episode. Got married in Myrtle Beach, so that was a lot of fun. But
Congratulations.
Thank you. Seth and Jared did a great job with the guys from Left Turn Colt last episode, and now we've got some guests from the Fast Lap podcast. We've got Deb Nicole and Chrissi Luttrell here with us. Thank you for joining us, and I guess the best way to start off is just to introduce yourselves, talk about your podcast, talk about where you're from, why you got into racing. Just a nice basic introduction here for our audience.
Sounds good. Deb, do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I am one half of Fast Lap with Chrissi and Deb. I'm the Deb part, obviously. I live in Maryland. And we kind of started our podcast. That's a funny story. I'll let Chrissi tell that one because she's way better at it than I am. But we've been doing this since August, and we finally got to meet for the first time for Charlotte for the 600 weekend. We rented an Airbnb together and just hung out all week, and it was wonderful. So now we're kind of back to reality and doing this apart. But about me, I got into racing as soon as I came out of the womb. That's as far back as it goes, honestly. My dad was a huge NASCAR fan and a huge Earnhardt fan, and he started me right then and there. Earnhardt actually won a dual race at Daytona the day I was born. So I like to think that I was kind of just born into it at that point. So my dad really got me into it, and I've been hooked ever since. And he likes to say, you know, I was really happy that you got into it, but I didn't think that you'd take it this far. I really didn't expect that. Kind of came out of left field for everyone. So, yeah. I have a cat and a dog that are pretty much my children, and that's about it.
Sorry about the little noise. My computer always likes to update or be like, hey, guess what? Right when I'm in the middle of doing a podcast. So, excuse me, I should get that taken care of. Anyway, I am Chrissi. I am the other half of Fast Lap with Chrissi and Deb. I'm the Chrissi half. I live in Florida. I live an hour south of Daytona, so I am blessed to be able to call Daytona my home track, and also Miami if I really want to stretch it. I got into racing when I was about 13, 14. I'm really close with my brother, who's a couple years older than me, and he is into cars. We were into drag racing, and I always hung out with him and his friends. I had my own friends, but we all kind of mixed and mingled together. Got into Mustangs and just went with them to the local drag strip. I hung out in his friends' garages on the weekends during high school. It was either I was at cheerleading practice, and then on the weekends I was in garages. I was definitely a mixed. I was not like one specific girl. I was everything. Had a couple Mustangs. I had a GT and then a Cobra, and now I have a Celine. And I love drag racing. And then my husband got me into NASCAR, and I was like, okay, I can give this a chance. It's motorsports. And the first race I actually sat down and watched the full race of was actually when Chase Elliott won his Xfinity championship. And they mentioned, Chase from Dawsonville in Atlanta, and I have family in Atlanta, which is my second home. So I was like, oh, okay, where's Dawsonville? And I looked it up, and it's actually right next door, about 10 minutes from where my family lives, where my second home is. Yeah, my family lives in Cumming, Georgia, which is literally one of the towns right next door. So that's kind of why I became a Chase fan, because I thought of him as the closest thing to a local hometown boy to me. As far as the podcast, well, I really tried to find a niche I wanted to do a blog, but I didn't really feel like typing and keeping up with it. And I was like, well, I like talking, which is odd for me because I'm actually really shy in person. Anyway, Deb and I kind of started laugh at me, started following each other. She reached out to me for this article she was writing about female fans for her friend Matthew, and she also writes for ToBen.com. And I gave her the answers to the interview, and then she never used my portion in her article. She was like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to have a second one. Had the second one come out, still didn't use me. I was like, okay, rude. But whatever, we were just going back and forth. And one day I just was like, maybe I'll do a podcast. So I messaged her and I was like, hey, you want to do a podcast? We kind of like get along. And she was like, okay. And that was how it started. Literally, that was how it started. And we didn't even know each other that well at the time. So.
No, there was minimum communication between us prior to me reaching out for the article, never including her stuff in the article, and then her saying, hey, I want to start a podcast. And I'm like, that's great. Let me know if I can help. Like, totally oblivious to the fact that she was actually asking me to do it with her. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I think the worst part of it for us was coming up with a name. It took us a solid 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. And that was constant texting and ideas, by the way. It was nonstop.
Yeah. We still do that, just not about podcasts anymore.
It pretty much went from texting nonstop about name ideas to just texting nonstop about everything. So we quickly became pretty close.
That's awesome. It's really exciting to hear. During COVID, I've heard a lot of these stories of people meeting online and, they start networking through some type of sport. A lot of the time we're pretty big in the fantasy football industry. So I've made connections in the fantasy football industry over the last year, and people have become my best friend just through podcasting and through online networking. So that's great to hear what you guys, the backstory behind the Fast Lap. And I know we over here at In Between Media, we're big fans of your guys's. So please keep it up. Keep the content coming. We're loving it.
We don't plan on stopping anytime soon. That's for sure.
We've got some kind of exciting stuff coming up that I won't spill yet. I think between it's between like us, our families, and the guy who helped set it up. That is like the only people who know. So we're like waiting.
Awesome.
We make facial expressions like everyone listening could hear it, but you guys said you do video, so I guess that works. We're like, ee.
Yeah, we're super about it.
Yeah, and we've got some ideas coming up and a bunch of stuff, but our main focus is we just have fun with it. We try to have a good time and talk to people like they're our friends, like we're hanging out, in a room with friends. Like I always tell people my idea where I base the show on the vibe is from the Dale Jr. download, because I love how everyone feels so welcome when they walk in his door. They sit down, they answer questions, but those questions a lot of times will branch out into a story, and then there's laughs, and then there's memories, and it just makes you feel like you're part of the family. And that's kind of how we model it, and it just comes really natural, thankfully, because it tends to work out pretty well.
Yeah, the Dale Jr. download's a big inspiration for us too. I know we do it a little differently, but that's a must listen for me, and it would be even if I wasn't a Dale Jr. fan. So
yeah,
that's certainly a great podcast, and those were some awesome origin stories. It was really cool to hear that, and so now I think we'll get into the actual racing of it. And basically, the last couple weeks, NASCAR Cup Series has been the Kyle Larson show. He has won the last 3 races, including the Texas All-Star. Hendrick Motorsports as a whole hasn't lost a race since May the 9th. It's just absolute domination for the Hendrick boys right now. Normally, the 3 of us, we would do a top 10 and rank our 10 drivers, but the 4 Hendrick guys are the absolute class of the field right now. We didn't even do one this week. Let's go around the room and get our thoughts about that. Seth, we'll start with you.
Yeah, the last 3 races, I know a lot of people are complaining about them, but it really hasn't been that bad of racing. I think just from, I know a lot of people out there playing DFS and on DraftKings trying, from a fantasy perspective, it's been a pretty dull couple of races. Just a couple numbers for you really quickly. Kyle Larson has led before, not counting the All-Star race, because the All-Star race, obviously with the invert rankings at the end of everything, kind of screwed up the restarts. But before that, Kyle Larson had led 77% of laps over the last two races before that. Mix in his Hendrick's teammates there as well. 90.4% of all laps led between the Coke 600 and Sonoma have been Hendrick's cars. So I think that kind of paints the picture a little bit. Jared, your guy Kyle Busch has kind of snuck in the picture a little bit. He's had some valiant efforts, but just come up short against those Hendrick guys.
I think he said it best, like after the Coke 600, like saying that just the fact that he finished third behind those guys was like right in the middle of them says something about his team. And it's real hard because like no one's really looking at how everyone else is kind of doing. Like they're all kind of like quiet about that. But like Kyle Busch has been running good recently. Brad Keselowski's been running decent this week, like recently. But it's just like the Hendrick guys. There's 4 of those guys that are always in like the top 10, even the top 5, and it just goes to show that Hendrick found something this year, and they won the Coke 600 on a mile and a half. They won a road course. They've been winning short tracks this year, like at Dover. So like it looks like they have speed at literally every track they go. The only issue I see with them right now is, do you think they're peaking too early? Because like we're about halfway through the season. Like usually how things like this go is like you might have a dominant first half and then kind of cool off in the second half because teams will eventually figure out something to catch up with you. Or is this going to be like the Joe Gibbs racing a couple years ago where they just dominated the whole season? That's where I'm kind of leading at, just based off Kyle Larson's performance. Because you think about Kyle Larson, like before he started going on this tear, like he was like finishing second, he was still leading laps, winning stages, and the whole joke about it was like, oh, how is Kyle Larson going to choke this race? And I guess he's just proven everyone wrong. But it's like, oh, I guess I'm just going to dominate the Coke 600. I'm going to dominate Sonoma. Guess what? I'm going to sneak out and win the All-Star race. So.
He's like, choke on this.
Yeah. Pretty.
I mean, I think if you think back a couple of years, it's almost like every team has had a year. I mean, we had a combination of Joe Gibbs and Stuart Haas last year when it was Denny Kevin. It's kind of the same thing, but this year on and off, it's like Larson, Elliott here and there. Not necessarily, Chase isn't up there exactly 100% with Kyle, but he's there. He's knocking on the door. And like you said, the other 2 Hendrick teammates, Alex Bowman, William Byron, they're there as well. And they're all kind of sharing that top 10. I don't think Hendrick as a whole is necessarily going to have a downfall. I think I've seen in the last few years, Chase always seems to get stronger as the season progresses. I think he's just now starting to find his groove, and I think that's going to continue to improve throughout the season. As far as Larson, I don't think he's going to be stopped unless he has just a real tear of bad luck. But I think this is Hendrick's season. I think this, as a Chase fan, it's hard for me to say this, but I think this would be Larson's championship to lose. That's my early, kind of guess at this point. But I do think Joe Gibbs is there with Kyle Busch. Christopher Bell had a little success, but I'm kind of disappointed to see Denny Hamlin not up there with a win yet. Truex is doing well. I think he's going to kind of, I don't want to say float by, but I think he's got a chance in Nashville. He's real good with that horse, with the horsepower and the downforce package. He's real good on those tracks. But with that said, my biggest thing is I'm kind of really surprised at the last performance from Stuart Haas so far. I mean, where's Kevin Harvick? Where is he at? Normally he's up there right neck and neck with the leaders. He could be the one person from Stuart Haas that's running the entire show, and he's really not been a talking point. Eric Almirola has been rough the last couple of years. It was nice to see him do well in the All-Star race, but it's the All-Star race. It doesn't count, So it's like, it's great to see you show up, but not the right race. So I don't know. That's my feeling. I think Hendrick is going to have a killer year next year. Who knows? The new car's coming out next gen. It's anyone's guess, but I think this season is going to be Hendrick's season.
I agree with you. I don't see Larson stopping. Like I looked it up because I saw a tweet about it earlier. He's won like 33 grand in Ohio since yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
On top of the $1 million he won Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah. He flew out and went straight back to racing.
Yeah, he went straight to Ohio and is running he ran the All-Stars in Wayne County. He's racing Ohio Sprint Week this week. He's winning everywhere. Like, you can't, like, he currently, I think, is probably the best in motorsports, period, across anything he competes in. Like, he just can't be stopped. Some people are joking at this point whether he's even human because he's just that good. And it's insane. Hendrick did a fantastic job grabbing him up, that's for sure. I think that having Larson there has sparked something because he wants to win badly. And I'm not saying the rest of the Hendrick guys don't, but he wants to win so badly and wants to race so badly. He's going everywhere just to do it. And he doesn't have to at this point, and he's still doing it because he wants to. And I feel like maybe it has sparked a competitive edge against the rest of them. And maybe that's what's helping Hendrick be so dominant currently. I mean, I'm not sure. That's just speculation, of course. But they're doing amazing. And then you're seeing, like Chrissy said, the problems with SHR this year, not performing. Eric Amarola is having a very, very bad year, which is not quite like him. And I'm not sure what that's about. And Denny Hamlin hasn't won yet. It's insane. I can't remember a season quite like this. I think 07-08 Hendrick Motorsports was the last time we saw Hendrick Motorsports this good.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I think I'm like, feels like 2007 all over again. Whenever Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson were winning, like it seemed like every single week they were winning. I think Jimmy had like 10 wins that year, or that might have been 08. But either way, it was like always those two were either always a top five threat or a threat to win every single week, no matter what track we went to.
Yeah.
Right, and before I get to Hendrick, SHR has been a punching bag on this show since we started it. They are just having a terrible year, but Chrissy, you mentioned also about kind of the patterns, the Chase Elliott, coming on later in the year. I think that all four of these Hendrick cars, that's going to be something to watch. With Larson, he's a complete wild card. I think that he is. I do agree he's the most talented guy in motorsports right now. Definitely the championship favorite. But I don't know how you can lead, 77% of the laps throughout the rest of the season, because it's a long year. You go into a lot of tracks that either we haven't been to ever in the Cup Series or not in a long time. Things like that. It's going to be real interesting because that team had kind of I'm not going to insult Jimmy Johnson by calling him a crappy driver, but he definitely was not the same Jimmy Johnson in those last couple of years with that team.
He fell off.
Yeah.
So seeing what that team does will be interesting. The 9 coming on late in the season, I think that'll happen again. Who knows if it'll be good enough for a second straight title. Alex Bowman has been really interesting because that team, when they're on, probably a top 3 team in the garage. When they're off, they're lucky to be a 20th place car. So it's almost a complete wild card in the same fashion. And William Byron with Rudy Fugle has had extreme consistency. They got the win at Homestead. He was able to pull off the win at Daytona at the end of the regular season to get into the playoffs. So I think he's another guy who could come on strong late. And that's almost scary to think that some of these Hendrick teams could get even better as the season goes on. That definitely as a Kyle Busch fan over there, Jared's not going to like that. As a fan of really any other team, thinking these Hendrick
Well,
guys,
here's the thing, with Kyle Busch, every time he doesn't win, he gets more and more fired up. He gets more motivated. So and the same thing with like people that boo and all that crap. Kyle eats it up. He takes it. He'll take a big old spoonful and just be like, keep on feeding it to me because all it does is motivate me more.
Oh, he loves it.
Yeah, and I feel like he's having a better showing so far than he did the beginning of his championship season and even last season a little bit. And I do agree with you about Hendrick overall. I was going to say, if you didn't mention William Byron, that, yeah, he's been pretty much like you said, Alex is when he's good. When he's bad, but Byron's just, he's kind of been, he's good. And then, but he doesn't really sink real low. I think we'll see Kyle Busch make it to the playoffs. I would like to see him in the Final Four because Kyle Busch in the championship is a fiery, spicy Kyle Busch, and it's a fun Kyle Busch. But I just think with the way the season's going, with how unpredictable in a way it has been, that it's like, you never know.
I feel like even with this dominance, you couldn't have predicted this.
No. Nope.
You couldn't have predicted McDowell winning. You couldn't have predicted Bell winning this soon. And you could have said, yeah, Kyle will win a couple races, but nobody expected Larson to go full on.
Yeah, I mean, I think in our first NASCAR draft of the season, we do a redraft every couple of weeks, but I think Kyle Larson was maybe in that first draft, like the 15th to 20th driver off the boards. Like there were hopes for him, and we had heard how much he was dirt track racing, last season after he got let go. Is that what you guys see as maybe the difference a little bit? Was that dirt tracking last season has really put him ahead, or Chrissy, kind of starting with you, like what is the difference with Larson, do you think? Is it just mentality?
I think it's a bit of both the mentality and the mindset he's in that not saying he definitely took things for granted, but losing his NASCAR career almost indefinitely may have put a lot of things into perspective for him, because I feel like there was a lot of talk, not last season, because obviously he wasn't there for most of it, but the season before, where people were starting to question, like, well, does he care more about his dirt racing than he cares about NASCAR? Like, why is he spending so much time in the sprint cars? Why is he doing so much dirt racing? He should be focusing on NASCAR. So then I think, I'm not going to say what happened was a good thing, but Deb and I always say look for the silver lining. And in Kyle Larson's case and his family's case, kind of gave him that, reset to go, okay, well, I've got this entire year basically of dirt racing under my belt, and then maybe made him realize what he missed about NASCAR and how much he appreciated it and respected it. Sorry, my dog is here. She's knocking my table. But I think in the same way, the dirt racing helped and benefited him, because it's hard to drive on dirt. That stuff is slippery and it's rough. And when you get that car down and you get control of the car is huge, especially if you're trying to save the car when you're on the track and you get loose or somebody hits you and you don't want to lose control. I think that helped a lot with his confidence in the stock car and moving forward with control over the car as a whole. So I think it all kind of played out, perfect mesh, and has just fueled him even more.
Right. With Larson, I think he basically fell ass backwards into a pot of gold. He was gonna end up getting a good ride somewhere else. He was probably gonna leave Chip Ganassi. He did what he did. He got that over with and found the Hendrick ride. And obviously he was a talented driver, and now he has, really gone on to become the championship favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I think it goes back to a lot of people in the industry, especially Charlie Langenstein, has always said to us, laps, no matter what car they're in, where they're at, what you're doing, lap and seat time is really important. That's why some of the teams with rookies or some of the lower budget teams are struggling a little bit more compared to other teams, because they don't have the practice and the seat time in the cars. Mm-hmm. So I feel like Larson pulling all those races off last year only made him a more competent driver. There's nothing, it doesn't hurt him at all, not in the slightest, because it's seat time. He got to go to a bunch of different tracks. Sometimes he would be there. That would be the first time he's ever been to that track. And I think that maybe prepared him a little bit better for this season, where you're not having practice and qualifying as much and you're just hopping in the car and going. He's comfortable with that because he's did it all last year.
Right.
So it's not, his confidence in getting in a car is better. And I think that really helps him. It makes a huge difference compared to other drivers.
Agreed.
Any other thoughts in the previous weeks, or are we moving ahead? What do we think? Oh, good. Okay. So we'll see if the Kyle Larson and Hendrick Motorsports show continues on. The next two races, we've got Nashville, where the Cup Series is headed for the first time in a while. If not the first time, we saw Xfinity and Truck there about 10 years ago the last time. And then we got the Pocono doubleheader to round out June. These tracks could be sort of wild cards. Again, Nashville's relatively new, and then the tricky triangle in Pocono. But it also wouldn't surprise me if it's exactly the same kind of stuff that we've seen. I guess whoever wants to start with this. Sorry, I don't have a better transition.
It's okay.
So I actually, when the questions were sent to me, I was like, oh, that's tough. Okay. So I did a little bit of research.
Nice.
So as far as Nashville, some of the drivers have ran on it in Xfinity. And I think my page shows 16 of them. And some of those are older drivers, so we won't count them. But Kevin Harvick has 2 wins there. And he hasn't won this year.
Yep.
So if SHR can fix whatever seems to not be quite right with them, or is in the middle of fixing it, Kevin Harvick easily can win those because he's done it before. Austin Dillon is another good one that has not won, that would be good at not only Nashville, but his average at Pocono is not awful either. And neither is Eric Almirola's. So if SHR is going to catch on fire, these would be the races that they're going to do it, without a doubt, between Eric and Kevin.
Yeah, Deb, I'm definitely with you on Kevin there. Looking back here, there are a handful of drivers who have won this track in the Xfinity Series, starting with Kevin Harvick, who has the most of an active driver. Obviously, Rowdy, Logano, Brad Keselowski, they've also won this race before too. So I think those are names to watch. I think the one thing that we do know, which is really exciting, there is going to be qualifying this week. And I think that definitely benefits people like Rowdy. These veteran drivers and even these rookies and these younger guys that don't have those laps down. So I think it just is going to benefit the race a lot as a whole, having that qualifying there.
I agree. I mean, like you said, especially for Kyle, it was very obvious and kind of like I don't want to say sad, but as a Kyle Busch fan, you can agree, Jared, that when he didn't have qualifying, it's almost like his entire team fell apart, and he really depended on practice and qualifying to feel out the car, tell the team what they needed to fix. It's almost like he was his own car chief and was telling them what they needed to do. And then it kind of showed a little bit of, a lot of people started to question I don't want to say exactly competency, but let's just put it out there. People on especially NASCAR Twitter, we're throwing Adam Stevens under the bus and questioning his competency as crew chief. Now he's got that switched out, and I think he's got a little bit of fire back. So, I mean, I'm one of those fans who I have my favorite driver, if you couldn't tell, and but I appreciate and respect when other drivers win. Yeah. I'm not going to hate on someone. I may be upset when a situation plays out the way it plays out, but I enjoy the sport as a whole. So I think Kyle will definitely benefit, and he should have a strong showing in Nashville. I think Truex, like I said earlier, will have a great showing. I agree with Deb. Austin Dillon might be a good one. He had a pretty good average at Nashville too. So he's going to be my choice as a kind of underdog for the weekend. And for Pocono, I think it's kind of up in the air at this point because, like you said, it could either be the same old, or something crazy is going to happen. We're going to have a wreck fest or something random that's just going to throw a shoe and everything, and who knows. So I think
with it being 2 days of Pocono, okay, you're going to have that first race where people are just kind of maybe getting used to everything, kind of feeling it out. But then you're going to have that second race where these drivers are going to know exactly what they want out of it and what they want their car set up to look like and everything else. So I think the first race might be a little bit more, I'm not going to say exciting, but have a little bit more drama to it than that second race because they're not quite sure what they're coming with, they're setting up, everything like that. So they're going to be constantly adjusting, or, some drivers may have not raced this track before either. I'm thinking of Alfredo at this point. I'm not 100%.
A few of the rookies haven't been to Pocono just because I don't think Xfinity has raced there in a long time. So you're definitely right on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So that first race may be a lot more interesting as far as battles and car setups than the second race.
Yeah, I could see that. I think the first race will probably be a bit tamer just because everyone's going to be trying to feel everything out and whatnot. Then, obviously, I think the patience is not going to be as much that second day because Pocono is a long track, 2.5 miles around there. I think by that second race, the guys are going to be like, oh, my God, let's get this over with. And they're just going to have very little patience there because I know how long those races are. And I will be going to Pocono, so I'm super excited for that.
Awesome.
I've always gone to Pocono. Me and my dad always go. We've gone since 2007. Obviously, we didn't get there last year, but it's just an awesome racetrack. I don't know if you two have been up there at all.
My dad actually took me for my first race in '97.
Okay. Yeah, I just have that bias where I know people say Pocono is a terrible track or whatever, and I'll agree. The racing there sometimes isn't the best, and I don't think it's going to be that great with the packages that are going to be running there. But just overall, as where the track's located, it's kind of a bit different than your other tracks because you see Charlotte, that's right in the middle of the city. Daytona's right by the beach. It's one of those it's like a nature's racetrack because there's just so many different things that you can do. There's so many mountains. It's not really in the middle of a city, but it's still close enough. New York City is a couple hours away. Philadelphia is a couple hours away. So it's not it's not in a bad location, but it just gives, for me growing up in that type of area or whatever, it just feels like it's a nice home track.
Yeah. I live, I think, 4 hours away.
Okay.
So it's one
A
of
lot
the
further.
tracks that's in my radius of
What part of Maryland do you live in?
Western Maryland.
Are you near
So, like-
Hagers? Are you like near Hagerstown?
I'm an hour west of Hagerstown.
Okay.
I'm more spitting on West Virginia than actually, when you think of Maryland, most people think, oh, Baltimore, oh, Ocean City. No, I'm in the middle of the woods. There's not a lot around where I'm at. I'm an hour east of Morgantown, so I'm right in between both places.
That's not bad.
For sure. Go ahead, Seth.
I was just going to throw it back to Jared. With you seeing these Pocono races, really your whole life here, how has the doubleheader kind of shake things up for you? Like you obviously kind of alluded to it a little bit. You think the first race is going to be a little more timid. They're kind of just going to gun it on day two. Do you think, are there any other differences, trends you've been seeing over the last few years?
Well, this is kind of different for me also, just to see that, because I think last year the first one was it was a little bit, like I said, this a little bit tamer than that second day, because the first one's not as long. So I think it's more so like a glorified test session for the Sunday. Like, I know there's 2 races and they're both points paying races, so guys are still going to be racing, but I just think that first race is just going to be kind of chill. They're going to see what they have with their cars, because they have to use the same cars for the next day. So they're obviously not going to push it as hard, especially at a track that they're going to use all their RPMs there, because that's like the straightaways are 3 very long straightaways. But I'm just excited, from the fan standpoint of this, so they didn't have fans there last year, so nobody really got to experience that. I'm really excited for this year. I don't know what to expect, because I'm just used to going on Sunday mornings, enjoying the fan zone, going to pit road, just all that stuff. But now we got the Xfinity race in the afternoon right before the Cup race. You got the truck race right before. They opened I think they were starting to sell pit passes and stuff. So and it's 100% capacity there. So I don't know what to expect for that. I know it's going to be jam packed with racing. There's going to be a lot of people there, and I'm just excited to see I'm excited to see how different that is compared to the one day show that I'm used to going to. But I'm excited for Pocono. I can't wait for that in a couple weeks.
I think you're going to see more fans than what you may have seen in the past at a normal Pocono, because people are so excited that things are back.
Right.
They just want to go. They're just like, oh, that's close. Let's just go, because it's close and everything's at 100%. I think we saw that in Charlotte. They were not expecting as many fans as I think that they got, because they didn't have the extra cell towers that they usually bring in. They had none of those. So cell service, is normally really crappy anyway. It's not the best, but you can usually get a signal or two. You couldn't get anything.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
I also think it's going to be busy, because people when they go to a race, they like to get the most bang for their buck. So the whole no practice, no qualifying really sucked for us. When we normally go to Daytona or Miami, mainly Daytona because it's so close, we do the whole weekend. We'll go up there and watch practice, qualifying, trucks, Xfinity, ARCA, if it's there, just get everything. But these one-day shows have been kind of you get there, there's nothing to do. There's no fan zone. There's a couple things open back when it was all, pandemic. And it was kind of really, you just sat at your car and waited till it was time to go line up to go in. So I do agree. I think it's going to be busy. It's going to be fun. And I also think you're right that the second day is going to be a little more chaotic. No offense to Deb. For all we know, we could be wrong. But I think the same thing, they're going to be figuring out the track. There might be a little bumping, little wrecking here and there, but I don't think it's going to be as aggressive. I think the second day, people are going to be like, all right, this is what I need to do. Everyone's going to be trying to get to the groove at the same time. They're going to be trying to get that race win. But then again, who knows? What do I know? This season has been so up in the air. I don't even know. My fantasy is awful. Every time I pick someone, I'm like, oof, RIP, it's done.
Well, I know one thing that's probably going to happen at Pocono is rain, so that's what I'm kind of figuring. Fans are back. This is a big weekend. They didn't have rain last year, so I'm sure I've been there many times. There's always been a chance of rain.
Don't jinx it.
I might as well at this point.
Oh,
I hope not.
I hope not either, because I'm not trying to make it a 3 or 4 day. Because I've always wondered that too. If you're doing a doubleheader weekend with 4 races, what happens if we get a monsoon that week? How are you going to try
4
to
races on Monday.
We waited till Wednesday to get that race in at Texas. That could be another situation like that for Pocono.
Yeah.
Another thing that we haven't mentioned is that Pocono being up in the northeast corner of the U.S., there was no Watkins Glen last year. Dover is a little further south. New Hampshire didn't have fans last year, so a lot of the fans up in that corner of the country, like the three of us here on the top row, at least on my screen, I guess that would be crappy if it wasn't, but the fans up in the northeast could definitely come out for this Pocono doubleheader weekend. And we definitely could see a lot of chaos in both races, but I think the most recent doubleheader we had was Michigan last summer, and Kevin Harvick won both races, pretty much dominated them. So we very well could see that again this year. And to be honest, I'm probably going to go with the fact that it'll be same old, Hendrick guys, maybe some Kyle Busch, a little sprinkling of somebody else. We'll probably do most of the leading here these next couple of races. But we do have a couple of fantasy dark horses here that we could go with. I'm going to kind of play off of some of the Stewart-Haas racing talk, and I'm going to say if they are going to come on, like Deb said, it's going to be these next couple of races. They're all talented drivers. Almirola, Briscoe, and Cole Custer, all very good. None of them have had the season that they've wanted. It would not surprise me at all to see one of them, or even if just Kevin Harvick wins and the other guys run well, then that'll still be a step forward for Stewart-Haas. Seth, I see you've got a dark horse down there. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, so credit to you, Elliot. I think you hit Kevin Harvick on the head there. If he's going to win, I think it's going to be sometime in these next 3 races here. Deb, she made a great point going to Nashville. He's won there before in Xfinity, and I think in the Cup Series as well, he's going to be good there too. My fantasy dark horse, and specifically for DFS guys, and when you're playing DraftKings or any of these other daily fantasy sports, you want to pick drivers who have a chance to move up in the rankings. Someone who starts, probably 20 plus and has a chance to get a top 10 finish. That guy recently has been Ross Chastain. Definitely a bumpy start to the season for him so far. But he does have a top 10 finish average at Pocono in the Xfinity series. Again, different cars, different packages, but he does have that experience here, unlike a lot of those younger guys. So I do like him there. And also he has 2 top 10s in point races over the last 3 races. So again, those are road courses, but he definitely has picked up a little bit. We saw him in the All-Star race as well. He advanced through that first round, and he was really competitive in the All-Star race too. And I think he has some fire under him because I think he needs to win to probably secure that ride for next year. Jared.
Well, here's my hot take for the weekend for Pocono. I'm going to say my dark horse, Eric Jones.
I love it.
Is going to be mine, okay? So I looked at some stats. Eric Jones has 8 races there. He has 2 races where he didn't finish in the top 10. 2017, his rookie year, finished 3rd. And the ones that he finished bad in, I think the spring-June race in 2018, he finished 29th. But other than that, 5th, 3rd, 2nd. He was in an accident in the first Pocono race last year and finished 38th. And then the second Pocono race, he finished 3rd after starting 38th.
Nice.
So
I love that.
So I think I know he's in it's a different equipment and different car and stuff, but I think just with how tricky Pocono is, pun intended there, with how tricky that track is, I think that's more of a driver's track, and I think if he obviously has only finished outside the top 10 twice in his whole career, I think he understands how the track races, and I think he can help RPM at least get a good setup for him to know what he wants to do for that weekend. So I think he's going to be someone to watch in those 2 races.
And let's just say, I have to say, I think he's had a pretty decent showing so far this season in the 43 car, not comparing him directly to Bubba because Bubba is a very talented driver and he is obviously where he is for a reason. But I feel like he's had a little bit of a better showing. I don't know if it's just the new energy in the team. I don't know what it is, but I feel like he's been close to the front a few times and unfortunately gets caught up in someone else's BS or something goes wrong on pit road, or a lot of the times where he hasn't finished top 15 or better, I feel like it's been an outside circumstance or just bad car. So I love that. I would love to see Eric win. I have a soft spot for him because my son was the one with the whole checkered flag incident at Daytona last year. I don't know if y'all remember where Eric tried to give him the flag at Daytona to the little boy.
Oh, wait,
what? The duel. That was my kid.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. That's awesome.
Because he was pissed off because he's a Denny Hamlin fan and he thought Denny lost the race to Eric. He didn't realize Denny was a lap down, so he was pissed. It was great. Yeah. So fun fact.
That's crazy. Because I remember watching that. I'm like, wow, that kid just denied the race winner. Like, wow.
I was mortified because I was like, "You're on TV. He's trying to give you the flag, Ronan. Get the flag," and he's just like,
"That's awesome. That carries some big stuff right there."
Yeah, yeah. I also
Big
sprained my
journalism.
ankle running down there because like I was at you're up the stairs and they're super steep, and I'm just there because I like to take Ronan down to watch the burnouts. And the lady pointed at me and was like, "Come down," and there was like a rope. And
Wow.
I thought somebody was going to come move the rope, but they didn't. So I was like, "Oh, I got to go." So we like slid under the rope. I rolled my ankle. It was great. Anyway, besides the fact. So yeah, fun fact. Anyway, so I have a soft spot for Eric Jones. Other than that, I'm going to jump in with my dark horse prediction. I'm going to go with Daniel Suarez because he has shown a lot of consistency and strength so far, in my opinion, this season. He's been pretty well at the top 10. He's not had the best finishes, but he's had the best finishes of his Cup career so far, and I love seeing the drive and determination. I think Trackhouse is doing a great job with him, and I love the support that he has, and I just think it's going to carry him a little bit further than he's gone in a while, and I'm here for it.
Love it.
So that's that. Anyone else?
It's okay if you don't. We can move forward. But
I'm good.
Okay. All right. So we've had a lot of great racing talk here on this show, and our last segment. Normally, we will go into backroad advice or stories or things about racing. And Seth, I know you wanted to take the lead on this one. We'll do a little something different this week.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like the fantasy football community, I often feel like the NASCAR community, whether it be the actual racers or whether it be the content creators, there's definitely a misrepresentation with not enough women in this sport. You guys are definitely one of the most mainstream women ran podcasts that I've seen. We're big. I've already said we're big fans here. I know a lot of people out on Twitter and Facebook are big fans of your guys'. So could you just talk a little bit about kind of how we can get more women representation in racing as a whole?
Deb, you look like you're ready to say something, but I always make you go first.
I'm trying not to get on my soapbox.
Get it.
Okay.
Get on it. Get on it. What this
This
is
is
for.
the time. No, this is the time for sure.
I feel like a lot of times on social media, and I'm not saying this as a whole, don't even take it like that, but sometimes on social media, if a female voices their opinion about anything in particular pertaining to the sport, whether it's a driver's car setup or just how a driver's performing, that there will be at least one male or somebody hiding behind a profile who will say something like, "You don't know what you're talking about." I've seen people just flat out say that to actually one of my friends who does in fact know what she's talking about, or that they're only talking about Ryan Blaney because he's attractive, or, fill in male driver here. That's a big one. And I feel like it just kind of creates an unwelcoming environment, especially for new female fans, when I have to talk, when I'm on Twitter and I make a post and somebody says something and I have to say, "I've been watching this for 30 years. Like, I'm not just getting here and not knowing anything that I'm talking about and saying, oh, this is this." Like, I feel like when the people who have been fans for so long that are female have to actually explain, "Hey, I've been a fan for this long. Here's the races I've been to. Here's, the people I've met. Here's, to legitimatize their fandom,"
Right.
taken seriously, that's a problem. So I think what it comes down to is just making women feel more welcome in the space.
Yeah.
I feel like at the track, other women make it easy for new fans to feel welcome. I feel like in person that it's a very different feel than it is on social media. And that could turn potential new female fans away.
I agree.
How do you fix that? I think that maybe, I don't want to say changing words because that's not really a thing, but like if you see a female making a point and she's getting utterly dragged for it for no reason, that it's up to other males who see it to kind of speak up and be like, hey, that's not cool. Like,
yeah, she knows what she's talking about. Her point is valid, it's legit, or like a stat or something like that.
Or even if she's not, if the point isn't valid, explaining it in a way that they can understand that you're not trying to mansplain the sport to them, or just, civil arguments, or not even argument, but like just a civil discussion rather than coming off condescending would be helpful. And maybe, maybe they educate you, maybe you educate her. Either way, it's a lot easier to go about it in a friendlier tone and to take them just a little bit more seriously, maybe.
And there are some females that kind of make others look bad, and I'm not pointing fingers at any specific people, but there are those fans out there that, for example, me as a Chase fan, I always have to premise my reason for being a fan before I say I'm a Chase fan, or right after I have to say, well, hold on, let me explain. I have to explain why. I have to immediately feel like I need to defend myself before I even finish getting the words out of my mouth, because everyone goes, oh, I know, Chase, he's just so dreamy. And I'm like, I don't care about that. That's not the point. Like, good for him. It's working for him, but that's not it. And like Deb said, we could try to get into a discussion and be just ignored or made to feel stupid, made to feel like we don't understand like cars. Like I've had people call me out, they're like, oh, you have a Mustang, do you know how to drive stick? And I'm like, yeah, I do, and I can probably do a better burnout than you can, but I'm not about to get out here and do this unless you want to. And we're made to feel like if we have a passion for sports, it's cute. It's because we're trying to get attention. It's because we're trying to fit in. It's because our boyfriend or our husband likes it and we just want to be like them. And it's like, no, there's a lot of women out there that like all types of sports, not just NASCAR. There's girls that are just as passionate about football that I know that as men that are screaming and yelling at the TV just as loud. It's kind of anywhere in a male-dominated sport and in NASCAR and people are constantly, even if a girl isn't posting on social media and getting dragged in the dirt, maybe she's seeing other females do it. Maybe she's seeing the girls that are doing their best hosting on the shows getting dragged through the mud because of what they're wearing, what they look like, what they sound like, anything stupid that has nothing to do with the sport. Like, who cares if Shannon Spake was wearing a shirt you don't like? She's up there doing her job and she's killing it. People talking crap about Caitlin Vincey. It's like, just... you guys are like, not you guys, but it's like sometimes you would just be like, you guys are just as bad as the people you're trying to talk about. So again, like Deb said, a little bit more welcoming. If you see someone who's being made to feel like crap or someone's attacking them, it's like, you know what, dude, is that really necessary? Because in my opinion, any fan of the sport is a welcome fan of the sport because we need all the fans we can get at any given time. So
more fans is more sponsor support. More sponsor support turns into better ROIs. Better ROIs lead to more sponsors in the sport, more drivers being sponsored, which is all great things for the sport.
Yeah, and not only that,
the sport is
but like and also like at tracks, there's a lot of guys that make women feel uncomfortable too. You get a couple drinks them and they start hollering at them, and look at some of the female drivers, they get torn apart just as quickly as they get hit on. And it's really kind of sad that
it's like two different types of people. Well, there's three when it comes to female drivers. There's the people who support them. There's the people who write "you're hot" or "you're beautiful," DM me under every single post that they make. Or there's another group of them who say you're trash under every single post they make.
Yeah.
Do you need those other two? Why are they talking?
Yeah.
There's just
a lot of like hate and negativity and just awful behavior out there. And that goes for a lot of people across the board, but mainly you know, as females, we get the brunt of it because we're not supposed to like guy stuff. So
Right.
that's why I like supporting our friend Liz Prostella and her company Torqued, because one of my tank tops I bought from her says, make your own sandwich. I'll be in the garage.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Awesome.
same vibe.
Well, thank you, ladies, both so much for that insight there. My big takeaway is that, you know, men as a whole and just everyone on social media, we need to be better allies for one another. And
Yes.
I know we're going to continue to do that here in Between Media. I hope our listeners and our viewers do that as well. Deb, do you have any final words, or either one of you Fast Lap hosts? Do you guys have any final words? Jared, Elliot, anything to close us out here?
I don't think so. Thank you guys for having us, though. It's been really fun.
For sure. I definitely had a great time. Would love to do it again sometime. And for those listening, if you haven't already checked out our show, of course, I'm going to do a shameless plug to go check out FastLap_podcast on Twitter and go check out our show. I think you'll enjoy it. And that's that.
Yeah, you are both certainly welcome back here anytime. I really appreciated all of the insight, and I could go on a whole rant here, but you know, my opinion, what both of you said is definitely true, and I'll just leave it with this. You know, we need to be better. We need to be better for sure. Thanks for coming down the back road with us. We'll see you next time.
Yes. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you.
Stenhouse gets away a little bit. 3 wide when they come off turn 4. This is the finish these fans came and stayed for.
So he's always been
Season or 19 races last year.
What he's going to have to do is he's going to have to compete.